Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Adi and today I have a brand new data analysis video. You see, you guys liked it so much when I analyzed all the data from Regulation C and showed you exactly how to use it that I wanted to do the same thing for Regulation D before the World Championships. And so in this video, I'm going to be showing you the 5 Pokemon that have the lowest win rates in all Limitless tours in the last 3 weeks. I went and I gathered every single tournament that was in Regulation D on Limitless platform, which is hundreds of tournaments ranging from, 5-player, 6-player tournaments to 600-player tournaments. I compiled all that information and I'm giving it to you right now. But you might be asking, Adi, I want to know the highest win rate Pokemon too. Why are you just telling us the lowest win rate Pokemon? Well, if you want the entire data set of every single Pokemon and their win rate and their games played, there is a feature on YouTube called Channel Memberships, and if you join my channel, it costs $5. You will get access to the spreadsheet that has all of the Pokemon and exactly how well they're doing. So if you want the Call for Worlds, that is where you're going to find it, I guess. Also, I might even update it after this weekend's set of Limitless tournaments that are going to be add to this data that might be the most refined that we have so far, but that is something that you can do. But in this video, I'm going to be only talking about the 5 Pokemon with the lowest win rates across Limitless tournaments. Granted, these are only Pokemon with high usage. I'm not talking about little cup Pokemon here. I think all these Pokemon have potential. People are looking at them. Good players are looking at them and saying, there is a toolkit here that we could use, but they're not converting very well. And so I have 3 real reasons for that I want to talk about first. The first is that they just interact poorly with the metagame. And they just, even though they are inherently strong Pokemon, there are other very common Pokemon that they don't do very well into that is causing them to win less often than you would like them to. The second is that these Pokemon might be more commonly used by bad players. And that isn't to say that they aren't good Pokemon, just that bad players or newer players might be more attracted to them. That is an example from the last generation that is really common is Whimsicott. Because Whimsicott was obviously a staple on Hyper Offense. It was really, really strong, but newer players really got attracted to Whimsicott, and so even though we knew it was a strong Pokemon, it was something that you had to prepare for. Its win rate always ended up very low. And then finally, the third option is that people just haven't figured out how to use them yet, and I think this is going to be a case for a lot of these Pokemon, is that they're just going to take a little more exploration, maybe a little more format development, and people are going to figure out exactly how to use them in their best possible way, and they're going to see metagame play. But for now, these are 5 Pokemon that have awful win rates across all the Limitless tours from the last 3 weeks. And so starting from number 5, we have Ting Liu. This is a Pokemon that was one of the biggest metagame threats in Regulation C. It's got so many stats, but it's had a huge fall from grace. And I really think this falls under the first category of it just interacts poorly with the metagame because with the introduction of Urshifu Water and Rillaboom, this Pokemon does so much worse. It just is so much worse for it to sit in front of 2 of the most common offensive Pokemon and say, I just have to Terra or switch out. And it's not even like you're threatening an Oko like you would with Fluttermane where you might have to Terra. Instead, you are just doing a fraction of their hit points, maybe 50% with a Ruination. So this Pokemon just not interacting very favorably with a lot of the Pokemon. Is nowhere near as splashable as it was in Regulation C. That being said, there have been some people that have been doing well with it. In particular, this team that Artcar used to get top 8, I believe, at the Nina Pokebros 71. And then I think that Dinetti, another Italian player, also went 10-4 and got top 16 or top 32 at the Nina Pokebros 70 that had 600 players. So it did have a couple successful performances here and there. And this is a team that looks a lot like the team that Alex Gomez used at the North American Championships, where it's using Sandtomb, Ting Liu, and Yond and Dozo, Solo Dozo, to really slow the game down, whittle away your opponent, and then put them in range for the Urshifu and the Chenpao that are some sweepers in back. Alternatively, you can use Yawn and the damage reduction from Ting Liu to help you set up the Goldengo, and then with Citrus Berry and the Rillaboom's Grassy Glide healing, you are healing very, very quickly as well. And so I think that this is one of the better approaches to using Ting Liu, but I definitely don't think that it's as good a Pokemon as it used to be, given that it has a 46.5% win rate across 600 games played. Moving on to number 4, we have Grimstar. Grimstar is another Pokemon that is honestly, I think this Pokemon is just kind of bad. I think maybe it needs more exploration. I think maybe we need to reimagine how we're using it, because the set that was really popular in Regulation C and in all of last generation was usually a screen set. Except I don't think screens are nearly as impactful anymore. And so I think that Grimstar is a Pokemon that good players like to use. It's just that it is harder to use now because of Fluttermane existing, because of Amoonguss being so popular, really just in Goldengo being so popular, just invalidating a lot of what it's trying to do, outpacing it, saying you need 2 turns to set up screens. That is too long. And so this is one of the most commonly used Pokemon on this list with over 2,300 games played, but only a 46.3% win rate. So really, really low. I think it's also people try to use it with some other Pokemon that are not great. For example, Moltres and Goodra are not the most successful Pokemon either. And I've seen a lot of usages with that. And so I think that maybe Grimstar does have a crazy toolkit. It's got a really high base attack stat. It's got a plethora of support moves to go with Prankster. I think that, if we're not trying to set up screens and maybe we can find something else to do with it, maybe especially as the metagame centralizes, you can really tailor it to be really, really good in a couple specific matchups. I think it might see some play moving forward, but right now I don't think this is the strongest Pokemon. That being said, there are some people who have used it successfully. Namely, Daniel used it to go undefeated in a Tuesday practice tour run by Tommy. This is, again, like I said, I think that this team just has good Pokemon around it as compared to the Moltres or the Goodra teams that, not the most powerful setup mons. This is trying to set up a Goldengo, which is one of the best Pokemon in this format, and really just has a lot of options alongside the Grimstar that make it so it's not a Grimstar team, but Grimstar is a mode that you can sometimes use to set up your Goldengo. And so if you really are going all in on support the Goldengo, maybe Grimstar is a viable route where it isn't as viable for other Pokemon that might want to set up because they aren't as dominant in their ability to set up. So that's potentially one reason why Grimstar has a low win rate, but I definitely think this Pokemon could see more play later on, especially as the format centralizes. And moving on to the third worst Pokemon in the game, we have Goodra, which is, again, often accompanied by this Grimstar. So that duo really just feeding into each other's low win rates. But this one, across over 2,200 games played, only a 44.5% win rate. And again, this is a Pokemon that I think people were really excited for going into this new regulation. People saw it has a crazy amount of stats. It has a steel typing to hit Fluttermane, and steel types are not super common in this metagame. You've really got King Gambit, and you've got Goldengo, and we didn't really get any new steel types that were especially good. And so it's not like you have this huge number of options. It does have a cool toolkit. It has almost every move under the sun. Crazy special defense stat. Really good typing, and we did see some people see a lot of success with it. Namely, we saw Teen Spirit use it on a rain team to get top 32 at Victory Road, and then I believe Fede Campo used it in the same team, this rental code, at a Nino Pokebros tour and got top 8 out of 600 players with it. So we saw at least one result with it, but normally it is trying to use this Shelter or Iron Defense Body Press set. And again, it's another Pokemon that I think might have to be reimagined in order for it to see a lot more play, because I don't think the set is really pulling its weight. I think, especially as the metagame, as Goldengo usage increases, especially, it's going to have a lot harder time trying to solo games. And so definitely a strong Pokemon. Again, it has so many stats. Surely there is a way to use it more successfully, but as it just hasn't seen the conversion rate. Although, again, some players have been very successful with it. And so I definitely think it can be successful. It just needs to be reimagined. The second worst Pokemon across every single Limitless tour is Sneezler. Again, another new Pokemon from Pokemon Legends Arceus. And this Pokemon has a cool toolkit, either as a setup Pokemon. It has some really cool support moves in Fake Out. Dire Claw is a really, really powerful move that has a chance to paralyze, sleep, and poison your opponent. And so if you don't really care about what status you're inflicting, a chance to paralyze or put to sleep is really, really strong. It has Unburden, so it can go really fast along with like a Grassy Seed, for example, but has not really seen a lot of success in these Limitless tours with a 42.9% win rate, a really abysmal win rate across 526 games played in the last few weeks. And so, I don't know. I just think, like, again, this is a Pokemon where if you're trying to base your entire strategy around Sneezler, I think you're basing your strategy around a relatively underpowered Pokemon. But if you can find a team where it slots in as a support Pokemon as a way to maybe beat a certain matchups that are weak to it, again, maybe if it does something very specific, then I think it has some potential. But right now, I just think it's an underpowered Pokemon, honestly. And I think it's a Pokemon that a lot of it is very easy to figure out how you want to use it on like a baseline level with the grassy seed with Unburden, and just has not seen a lot of success. But I think this is a Pokemon that newer players are attracted to, and that's probably partially why it has such a low win rate. That being said, Sneezler has seen a decent amount of success. If you look at the Liberty Note tournament, that was one of the biggest Japanese tournaments that was held, it got top 8 with Gahaku using it, and notably not using it with Rillaboom, instead using it with an Indeedee on almost a Psy-Spam Ursaluna Trick Room team. And so this team was one of the stronger Sneezler teams that I saw that actually did manage to use it pretty successfully with just as a support Pokemon with Fake Out, Dire Claw, Close Combat, and then also the ability to go really fast with Unburden next to Indeedee if you so choose. And so again, really like using its flexibility and using it more not as a primary mode, but as a secondary mode next to your Ursaluna mode. And there's another team that I thought I saw that did pretty well with it, which was a more traditional team. So this was Bowling, who won the Mouse Tour a few weeks ago with a Grassy Seed Sneezler set on a very unorthodox team featuring some very interesting Pokemon like Regieleki, like Farigiraf. But this is another potential way that you can use Sneezler with the Acrobatics and Swords Dance sets to really try to overpower people once you've gotten your Speed Boost and a very powerful Acrobatics. And then finally, the worst Pokemon across all these Limitless Tours is King Gambit. Another Pokemon that was really, really good in Regulation C, and the new format has just not been forgiving to it. With 812 games played, it has the lowest win rate with 42.6%. It's just a really abysmal win rate. And if you're wondering why, it really is. I think it's just the Urshifu. Urshifu just entirely walls it with its Dark and Steel coverage. It does not have a ton of things it can do, and it's forced to switch out or Terra in front of every Urshifu it sees, which is really not a good place to be. And on top of that, now it faces more competition from that Dark type set. You know, we saw the Swords Dance Dark Classes set do so well, and at parts of Regulation D, either from Emilio Forbes winning Fresno or Luca Tragut getting top 4 at Fort Wayne Regionals. And then that set now facing competition from Urshifu. We saw Dark Urshifu. We saw Kyle Livinghouse get top 4, I believe, at the 600 player Nino Pokerose Tour with a Urshifu set that was trying to do the exact same thing, except it hits through Protect and doesn't have as good a defensive typing. But if you're Terra Darking, as you were very often with your King Gambit, it really just is outclassed in that role to some extent. And so maybe people have to go back to the Assault Vest set that was more common in Series 2. But again, it's facing more competition in the Dark type slot. And also, it's just poorly positioned into one of the most common Pokemon in the metagame, I think, is part of the reason why this Pokemon that people are maybe so comfortable with, we wanted to try it out, wanted to use their comfort picks, but are just not seeing a lot of success with it. That being said, there was one player who saw a lot of success with it, winning the 19th Beanie Brawl, was Big Mike OG, who went 11-1 en route to winning with this team. And seeing, that traditional Black Glasses Swords Dance set and finding a niche for it. I mean, I guess one reason to use it over Dark Urshifu is if you want to use Water Urshifu and you can't use both of them on the same team. And so putting it next to that Water Urshifu is maybe one reason to use it. But finding ways to overcome the debilitating weakness to Urshifu forms and finding a way to overpower teams with the King Gambit is really cool to see. So again, not inherently a bad Pokemon, clearly has a lot of stats, clearly has a lot of potential, but has not seen a lot of success. And I just think it interacts really poorly into the metagame. But on the right team, I definitely think that it can do quite well. And so here we see the 5 Pokemon with the lowest win rates in Regulation D across many tours on Limitless. King Gambit, Sneezler, Goodra, Grimstar, and Ting Liu. 3 Dark types, funnily enough. But yeah, really just 5 Pokemon that are struggling to find their footing in Regulation D. Do you think these Pokemon are going to see success later in the format? And do you think we can see a resurgence at the World Championships in a couple weeks for these Pokemon? Let me know in the comments. And again, if you want to see the entire data set with every single Pokemon's win rates over the last few weeks, make sure to join as a channel member, and I will have that on my community page for channel members that will link to the entire spreadsheet. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, I'll see you all later.